Today we are going to go over the no BS 5-minute intro to get you fly fishing. If you've never fly fished before, this is going to be everything you need to know to hit the river, go have fun, and hopefully find some nice, beautiful fish in a mountain stream. Today we're going to talk about the rods and the equipment to use. Hint, you can use any rod, doesn't need to be super special. We're going to talk about the flies you use and the different types, and we're also going to talk about how to find fish in the river, and finally how to cast to them and make the fly do what you want to do so that you can catch that nice fish. So let's jump into it. We're going to go over the 3 main types of flies today. We have dry flies, nymphs, and streamers. So over here first, we'll talk about dry flies. Dry flies are the adult stage of an insect or a bug that fish would naturally be eating in the river or nature. These ones are a little fluffier. They have what look like real wings and an adult fly. These might accidentally fall in the river, they might die in the river, or they might be laying eggs in the river is why they might be there and the fish eating them. The other type is the nymph. The nymph stage you can see here, these are more like the pupa or the larva of these other flies that would be adults later. These are going to be fished under the water as they grow up under rocks as they grow up under rocks. So we're going to fish them a little bit differently. The dry flies, we're going to fish on the surface. The nymphs are going to flow underneath, close to the bottom, where they might get knocked off a rock and float by a fish for them to eat. The last type is a streamer. These types mimic small fish or leeches in the water, and we're going to make them move a little bit to give a lively action like they are a leech or a bait fish in the water. So those are the different types of flies. Within that, there are many selections, but those are the main styles. And honestly, you can probably catch a fish in any river with either of these flies. It's just whichever approach you want to take for the given day. On certain days, if you see the fish coming to the surface, eating flies, you'll want to use a dry fly. If you don't see any fish coming to the surface, and maybe you see them with your eyes all the way down deep, you can use a nymph or one of the streamers and use it like a minnow to try to get their attention. The last thing to do also to help if you want to get your nymph or streamer deeper is you can tie on or crimp on a little weight we call split shot. It helps get your fly down faster, closer to where those trout or other fish are eating. So now we're going to talk about using these flies. Today I'm using our telescoping fly rod, but you can use any fly rod. What we're going to do is we're going to look for the trout first in the river. Inherently, trout are going to face upstream actually, because food is going to be coming downstream and they're going to be looking at it coming by. They're also going to be facing upstream, behind rocks or logs or on the edge of fast currents, but not in the fast current because that takes more effort to stay there. You can actually check out, we have a nice blog post on how to find fish in the river, and after you get a few clues, it's easy to find them actually. If you're wearing polarized sunglasses, you can also potentially see them underwater and where they might be hiding. So we have a big grasshopper tied on so that we can demonstrate how you want your fly to be in the water. And most flies will get eaten by a fish or a trout specifically, as most people are after, when you have a clean drift. We call a clean drift like that because we don't add any drag onto the fly and it looks natural as it would come down the river. For example, if you had a cheeseburger served to you and it started walking across the table, you probably wouldn't take a bite and question it. Same thing. If we're dragging a fly in an unnatural way across the water, the fish might say, that looks odd. So let's show you the 2 methods on how to let a fly drift down the river. We're going to cast the fly out and we're going to get a clean drift. It goes the same speed as the current and it looks like a natural insect that will be flowing down the river. So now that you know what you want your fly to do once it's out there in the river, let's talk about casting to get it there. The most common and I think best cast you should start with is the roll cast. It has a number of advantages so that you don't get caught on branches behind you. It's easy to do and you can use it most of the time. You get a little line out of the end of your rod. You bring the rod up a little bit past upright and you lean it out so the line does not hit the rod. So it's leaned out just a little bit and you stop it right about at your ear. Now you karate chop forward and abruptly stop. And it should roll your line out and your fly into the river. Let me show you one more time. Bring the rod tip up, lean a little bit out so the line is not touching the rod. You stop the line just behind your ear and then forward. And the line rolls out onto the river and carries your fly with it. So now we're going to talk about the back cast. The back cast is when you have room behind you and no brush, and you potentially want to get more line out on the river. Use a back cast. With this one, we're going to fling all the line behind us. It's going to make a loop. The loop is going to unfold, and then we're going to move forward and fling the line into the river. The more line you have out, the longer you pause actually. Sounds counterintuitive, but it's so that the line can straighten behind you, and then you fling it forward. So here we're going to show you. We're going to pick up, and we're going to go back. We're going to go 11 and 2, and set the fly down. You don't need to go back and forth many times. We're simply trying to lay the line out with enough momentum. So we go back, 10 and 2, 10 and 2. You don't need to do many back and forths that are called false casts. Those are just to help get you lined up in the river. So there you go. That's how you do a back cast. Nice trick to know also to feed line out between casts, or maybe to get more line out for your roll cast or back cast, is to do what I call wag the tail of the dog. You shake the end of the rod and you use the weight of the line to help feed more line out of the end of the rod. If you see here, line gets sucked out of the rod, line gets sucked out of the rod, and then you're ready for a roll cast, let's say. Bam! So there you have it. We went over in just a few minutes, honestly, everything you need to know about fly fishing. A lot of other places and experts and fly fishing dorks love to go into all the fine details about the fly line and which rod, which size of tippet you use, which I didn't even tell you what tippet is, but it's the thin, clear line at the end of the rod. You don't need to know that much about all this stuff. That's overcomplicating it and honestly distracting sometimes from the fun of getting out in nature and having a nice adventure. So if you just take the few tips we talked about today, you can refine them over a lifetime, or just take those and run and go fishing. You're gonna find some fish and have a good time. So good luck out there, and reach out if you're interested in our travel-oriented rods and nets and gear to help get you fishing anywhere for the multi-sport athlete or fly fishing dork like me. Thanks.